Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that the people who talk the most often know the least, and the people who listen the most often grow the fastest? See, in life, success doesn't come from proving how much you know. It comes from positioning yourself to learn what you don't know. The less you speak, the more you create space for wisdom, for discipline, and for growth. When you learn to listen more than you speak, you open the door to growth that talking can never bring. Every time you hold your tongue and lean in with your ears, you put yourself in a position to receive what others overlook. Most people miss out on wisdom not because it wasn't available, but because they were too busy talking when they should have been listening. Listening is not just about hearing words, it is about receiving understanding, catching hidden meaning, and discerning patterns that are invisible to those who constantly need to have the last word. Growth comes not by proving how much you know, but by admitting how much you don't know and creating space to fill that gap with wisdom. When you are quiet, you allow others to reveal themselves. People will tell you who they are, where they are strong, and where they are weak if you just give them the space to speak. The one who listens carefully learns more about others in 10 minutes than the one who talks for an hour. By observing how someone speaks, the tone they use, the way they emphasize certain things, you gain insights into their mindset and their perspective. These insights are valuable tools in relationships, business, negotiations, and even in personal growth. The person who listens collects information, while the one who talks too much spends it. The spender always loses more than the collector. Listening is also an act of humility. When you listen, you are saying, I don't have all the answers, and that very posture attracts more answers. It is like an empty cup. Only when it is empty can it be filled. But a mouth that never closes is like a cup that never empties. Nothing new can enter. The wisest people in history were not the loudest, they were the quietest. They asked questions, they listened, and then they acted. Listening positions you to access treasures of knowledge, treasures of wisdom, and treasures of understanding that constant speaking will never allow you to find. Listening also slows you down long enough to evaluate. Words are easy to release, but they are impossible to retrieve once spoken. Every word has weight, every statement carries energy, and once it is out in the atmosphere, it starts creating effects. Sometimes effects you never intended, but when you listen, you gather enough data to decide what words are worth speaking and what words are better left unsaid. Listening protects you from foolish mistakes, from broken relationships, and from missed opportunities. Talking without listening is like driving without looking at the road. You may move, but you are headed for disaster. When you learn to listen deeply, you begin to hear things others can't. You start noticing the tone behind the tone, the silence behind the words, the intention behind the statement. This is the realm of discernment. Discernment is not simply knowing what was said, it is knowing why it was said and what was left unsaid. That level of awareness does not come to those who constantly speak. It comes to those who discipline themselves to close their mouths and open their ears. Listening opens the hidden doors of understanding that words alone can never reach. Listening also builds influence. People are drawn to those who make them feel heard. When you listen, you validate others. You create trust, and trust is the currency of influence. Influence is more powerful than money because with influence, you can create opportunities, open doors, and move people toward action. The person who dominates every conversation may think they are leading, but in reality, they are isolating themselves. The person who listens, however, is gathering allies, building credibility, and positioning themselves as someone worth following. Influence is never built on noise. It is built on understanding, and understanding begins with listening. Listening is also the key to acceleration. Most people take the long road to success because they try to figure everything out by themselves, but listening shortens the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Every mentor, every teacher, every successful person you meet has experiences that took them years, sometimes decades, to gain. By listening, you can compress those years into minutes. Listening allows you to bypass mistakes, skip detours, and accelerate your journey. Talking keeps you on the same path you've always walked, but listening gives you access to new paths you never would have discovered on your own. Finally, listening transforms your inner world. It teaches patience, it develops empathy, and it shapes your perspective. When you listen, you stop living only inside your own mind and start entering the minds of others. That expansion enlarges your capacity, and enlargement is the foundation of growth. You cannot grow outward until you first grow inward. And listening is the discipline that stretches your inner self, making room for greater wisdom, greater vision, and greater impact. When you discipline yourself to speak less, you automatically give yourself the gift of observation. Observation is the ability to see beyond the surface, to catch what most people miss because they are distracted by their own need to be heard. Wisdom is not only found in words, it is hidden in patterns, in behaviors, in the small details that reveal the truth about situations and about people. Those who talk too much blind themselves to these details, but those who observe quietly learn the lessons that noise can never teach. Observation sharpens your vision. You start noticing how people move, how they react, how they respond under pressure. You begin to understand character not by what people claim about themselves, but by how they behave when no one is applauding. Actions speak far louder than words, And when you stop filling the air with your own voice, you can finally pay attention to language of action. The person who trains themselves to see will always have an advantage over the one who only wants to be seen. Observation also exposes opportunities. Opportunities rarely announce themselves with trumpets and loudspeakers. They hide in plain sight, wrapped in ordinary moments that most overlook. The entrepreneur who observes the frustrations of customers can create a product that solves their problem. The investor who observes the trends before they are obvious to everyone else positions themselves for wealth. The leader who observes the strengths and weaknesses of their team knows exactly how to guide them to victory. But none of these insights can be gained without quietness. Without the discipline of watching closely while others are too busy talking. Observation develops patience. Growth is never instant. Just like seeds take time to sprout, wisdom takes time to gather. The habit of observing requires you to slow down, to wait, to analyze before you act. Patience itself is a form of wisdom because it keeps you from rushing into decisions that cost you more than they pay. Those who lack patience leap without looking. Those who observe carefully may take longer to move, but when they do, they move with precision. The power of observation is not speed, it is accuracy. And accuracy wins in the long run. Observation creates clarity in relationships. People reveal themselves through patterns, not promises. Someone may promise loyalty, but observation shows you if their actions line up with their words. Someone may speak confidently about their abilities, but only through observing their consistency you know if they can truly deliver. Observation allows you to separate truth from illusion, loyalty from convenience, discipline from empty declarations. In every relationship, whether personal or professional, your growth depends on how well you can discern reality, and discernment is born from quiet observation. Observation saves energy. Every word you speak requires energy, and every distraction you entertain drains focus. But when you learn to observe, you are no longer pulled in by every noise, every argument, every temptation to prove yourself. You conserve strength. You direct your focus and you invest your energy into what truly matters. Observers are not passive, they are strategic. They choose when to act, when to speak, and when to remain silent. And because their moves are timed with precision, their impact is far greater than those who scatter their energy everywhere. Observation is also the foundation of creativity. When you observe deeply, you see connections others cannot see. You notice how one idea could merge with another, how a problem could transform into a solution, how an obstacle could be turned into an opportunity. Creativity is not about inventing something out of nothing. It is about seeing what already exists from a new perspective. And that perspective comes from paying attention, from slowing down, from watching what others ignore. The less you speak, the more you give your mind space to process what you see, and that processing is the soil where creativity grows. Observation teaches discipline. It takes discipline to hold back words when you feel like speaking. It takes discipline to sit still when everyone else is rushing. But that discipline creates strength. The quiet observer is not carried away by emotions or impulses. They are guided by insight. Discipline is the bridge between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge tells you what is happening. Discipline keeps you from reacting too quickly. And wisdom shows you how to respond at the right time. Observation holds all three together. Observation leads to mastery. Every master in any field became great by watching closely before they acted boldly. The musician who studies the patterns of sound, the athlete who studies the movements of opponents, the entrepreneur who studies the shifts in the market, all become masters because they first observed. Mastery is never loud in the beginning. It is built in silence in the hours spent watching, learning, and adjusting before anyone else even notices. The less you speak, the more space you give yourself to master your craft. When you understand that action beats conversation, you begin to separate yourself from the majority of people who only talk about success but never experience it. Talking feels productive because it gives the illusion of movement, but action is what produces results. Words can inspire, but action transforms. You can talk all day about your goals, your dreams, and your vision, but if you do not act, nothing changes. The marketplace does not pay for conversations, it pays for execution. The bank does not deposit your words. It deposits the fruits of your labor. Every breakthrough in life and business is the result of action, not endless discussion. Action has a way of teaching you what words cannot. You can sit in a classroom for years learning about business, but you will learn more in 1 month of executing an idea than in years of only talking about it. Action reveals where your plan is strong and where it is weak. Action shows you what needs adjustment. Action uncovers opportunities that talking will never expose. Many people remain stuck in the cycle of planning, talking, dreaming because they are afraid to step into the unknown. But wisdom is not gained in theories alone. Wisdom is forged in the fire of action. When you take action, you separate yourself from the crowd. Most people love to talk. They talk about what they are going to do, what they would like to do, or what they should have done. But the ones who rise are the ones who move. Talking attracts attention for a moment, but action builds credibility that lasts. People trust those who do more than those who promise. Every time you act, you are building a track record, and that track record becomes proof that you can be trusted with greater opportunities. Those who only talk may impress for a season, but those who act create a reputation that opens doors. Action requires courage. It is easier to talk because talking carries no risk. Talking lets you sound smart without proving anything, but action demands commitment. When you act, you risk failure, you risk criticism, you risk being wrong. Yet it is in that risk that growth happens. Every successful person you admire became successful because they chose to act in the face of fear. They did not allow the comfort of conversation to rob them of the rewards of courage. Talking will never stretch you, but action forces you to expand. Growth cannot come without action, and action cannot come without courage. Action turns intentions into impact. You can intend to help others, to change your life, to build wealth, but intentions without action are empty. Action takes an invisible idea and makes it visible. Action takes a thought in your mind and turns it into something others can experience. Without action, your ideas remain locked inside of you and no one benefits from them. But when you move, when you execute, when you act, your intentions are converted into something tangible. Action is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. Action creates momentum. Once you take the first step, the second step becomes easier. The hardest part of any journey is not the 100th step. It is the first one. The first step requires you to break inertia, to overcome resistance, to silence the doubts. But once you act, momentum begins to carry you. Every action builds upon the previous one, and soon you find yourself moving faster than you thought possible. Conversation does not create momentum, it creates delay. Momentum belongs to those who refuse to stay stuck in talk and choose to step forward in faith. Action refines your character. Every action you take shapes who you become. Talking may polish your image, but action shapes your identity. When you act consistently, you develop discipline. When you act boldly, you develop courage. When you act wisely, you develop discernment. Action does not just change your circumstances, it changes you. And the person you become through action is always greater than the person you remain through conversation. Action is not just about what you achieve, it is about who you are becoming. Action speaks louder than any speech you could ever deliver. People do not remember the promises you made, they remember the results you produced. Action has a voice of its own, and it speaks with authority. Action communicates seriousness, commitment, and vision more powerfully than any set of words. Talking tells people what you plan to do, but action shows them. Talking may build expectation, but action delivers confirmation. In every area of life, action always carries more weight than words. Silence is strength because it demonstrates mastery over yourself in a world where most people are controlled by the need to react. Anyone can shout back when provoked. Anyone can argue when challenged. Anyone can speak when emotions are high. But it takes true strength to hold your peace when everything inside you wants to respond. Silence is not weakness. It is control. It is the ability to decide when your words will be released and when they must be withheld. Words carry power, and power must be managed with discipline. If you release words carelessly, you lose authority. If you release them with intention, you gain influence. Silence is the guard that protects the value of your words. Strength is revealed not by how loud you can speak, but by how much restraint you can demonstrate. Think about those who carry real authority. They rarely need to raise their voices. Their silence carries more weight than the shouting of those around them. Their calm presence changes the room without them needing to explain themselves. That kind of strength comes from within, from confidence that does not need validation. Silence communicates certainty, and certainty is magnetic. People are drawn to those who do not waste energy proving themselves because their quiet confidence speaks louder than arguments ever could. Silence also creates mystery, and mystery is powerful. When you say less, people begin to wonder what you are thinking. They begin to pay more attention to your presence, to your actions, to your decisions. Silence forces people to lean in, to fill in the blanks with their imagination. In business, in leadership, even in relationships, the one who remains silent often has the advantage because others reveal themselves while trying to draw you out. Silence makes people uncomfortable, and in their discomfort, they speak too much. They expose their weaknesses. They disclose information you would never have known if you had rushed to talk. Strength is not always in disclosure. Sometimes it is in discretion. Silence gives you time to think. Words spoken in anger, frustration, or haste often create problems that cannot be undone. When you choose silence, you give yourself space to evaluate, to calculate, to decide on the best response. That pause is not weakness, it is wisdom. In that pause, you protect your relationships, your reputation, and your opportunities. Silence is the difference between reacting and responding, between losing control and leading with intention. The strong are not those who always strike back quickly. The strong are those who wait, who observe, who respond when the timing is right. Silence also protects your energy. Speaking requires energy. Defending your position requires energy. Arguing requires energy. Most of the conflicts people engage in are not worth the energy they consume. By choosing silence, you preserve your focus for what truly matters. You refuse to be dragged into every battle, every disagreement, every distraction. Strength is not proven by fighting every fight. It is proven by choosing the right battles. Silence gives you the ability to walk away from the noise and invest your strength in building something meaningful. Silence magnifies your actions. When you stop announcing everything you are going to do, people are forced to watch what you actually do. Promises lose power when they are made too often without results, but silence keeps attention on your execution. When your results speak, You no longer have to. People respect those who produce more than those who proclaim. Silence adds weight to your victories because no one saw them coming. Your success arrives without warning, and its impact is undeniable. This kind of strength is not in words, but in the quiet discipline of building when no one is watching. Silence builds authority because it creates contrast. When you speak rarely, your words carry more weight. When you speak often, your words are easily dismissed. People listen more carefully to those who are not always speaking because silence has created anticipation. A rare voice is a valued voice. Your strength is not just in knowing what to say, but in knowing when to remain silent so that when you finally do speak, your words command the room. Authority is not just about knowledge, it is about timing, and silence is the discipline that gives your words their timing. Silence is also healing. There are times when nothing you say can fix a situation, but your silence can prevent it from getting worse. There are moments when speaking would reopen wounds, but silence allows space for reflection and reconciliation. Silence gives room for emotions to settle, for understanding to rise, for clarity to return. The strong know that not every situation requires a response. Not every conflict requires a statement. Not every attack requires a defense. Sometimes silence is the loudest declaration of strength because it shows that you are not controlled by the chaos around you. Energy must be invested, not wasted, because every ounce of energy you have is like currency. The difference between those who achieve great things and those who remain stuck is not always intelligence or talent. It is how they spend their energy. Most people pour their energy into things that yield no return. Arguments, gossip, distractions, defending themselves to people who do not matter, chasing approval that will never satisfy. But the wise understand that energy is limited, and because it is limited, it must be invested where it produces growth, results, and transformation. Every day you wake up with a certain amount of energy, like a bank account with a deposit. Where you spend it determines what you get in return. If you spend it on complaining, you earn more reasons to complain. If you spend it on excuses, you build a life filled with limitations. If you invest it in learning and discipline, in building, you reap knowledge, progress, and momentum. Energy flows toward what you focus on, and wherever your energy flows, that area expands. This is why wasting energy on negativity, on fear, on meaningless activity creates a life that goes in circles, while investing energy into purposeful action creates forward motion. Energy must be guarded with the same seriousness you guard your money. You would not throw your money into the street for strangers to pick up, but many people give away their energy every day to people and situations that rob them. A pointless argument drains energy that could have been invested in creating solutions. Constant worry drains energy that could have been invested in building confidence. Trying to impress others drains energy that could have been invested in becoming excellent. Every time you waste energy, you weaken your ability to grow, and every time you invest energy, you multiply your potential. Investing energy requires intention. You cannot invest in everything. Just like a wise investor chooses certain opportunities and rejects others, you must choose carefully where your strength will go. Focus is the tool that directs energy. Scattered energy produces little. Concentrated energy produces breakthroughs. The sun shining across the sky warms the earth, but the same sunlight focused through a magnifying glass creates fire. Your energy works the same way. When it is scattered on everything, it has minimal impact, but when you focus it on the right goals, the right projects, the right relationships, it creates transformation. Energy is also multiplied through alignment. When your actions, your thoughts, and your words are aligned, energy flows without resistance. But when you say one thing, think another, and do something else, your energy is divided. Division drains power, but alignment multiplies it. Investing your energy means bring all parts of yourself into agreement with your purpose. When your inner world and your outer actions align, your energy is not wasted on internal battles. Instead, it is invested fully in moving you forward. The way you manage energy also so determines your resilience. Wasting energy leaves you exhausted and unable to endure the challenges of life. Investing energy builds endurance, because every purposeful action strengthens you for the next one. People often ask why some seem unstoppable while others burn out quickly. The answer is in energy management. Those who waste energy on things that do not matter are drained when real challenges arrive. Those who invest energy in growth and preparation, in vision, are ready to stand strong when adversity comes. The secret is not endless energy. It is strategic energy. Energy must also be renewed. Even the best investor knows that money must circulate to grow, and energy is the same. You cannot give all your energy away without replenishing it. Rest, reflection, prayer, learning, and stillness are ways to recharge so you can invest again. Wasting energy leaves you empty, but investing energy wisely includes knowing when to step back, when to recover, when to rebuild your reserves. Strong people are not those who never tire. They are those who know how to renew and redirect their energy. Every breakthrough in your life will come from how you invest your energy. If you want wealth, you invest energy in creating value. If you want influence, you invest energy in serving others. If you want growth, you invest energy in learning and applying new knowledge. Nothing happens without energy. The life you are living right now is the result of how you have been investing or wasting your energy up until this point. Every choice is an investment. Every action is an investment. Every thought is an investment. The harvest always reflects the investment. Growth is revealed by fruit, not noise, because real progress does not announce itself with constant talking. It shows itself in undeniable results. Noise is easy. Anyone can talk about what they will do, what they plan to achieve, how big their vision is. But fruit requires discipline, time, and consistency. A tree does not prove it is growing by making sound. It proves it by producing fruit in season. In the same way, your life, your work, your relationships, and your character are not measured by how much noise you make, but by the tangible evidence of what you have built. Fruit cannot be faked for long. You can pretend with words, you can impress with noise, you can give the appearance of growth for a season, but eventually reality will reveal itself. A person who talks constantly about wealth but has no stability in their finances is making noise, not producing fruit. A person who speaks endlessly about discipline but lacks consistency in their habits is making noise, not producing fruit. The test of growth is not in what you declare, but in what others can clearly see. Results are the proof, and results cannot be argued with. Fruit comes through process. Process requires silence. Seeds grow underground where no one sees them. Roots stretch deep before branches reach high. In those hidden seasons, there is no applause, no recognition, no noise. But without those silent seasons, fruit could never appear. Many people want visible results without embracing invisible growth. They want recognition before they have substance. But just like a farmer knows that fruit takes time, you must understand that true growth requires seasons of silence, patience, and work that no one celebrates. Noise skips the process, but fruit proves the process was honored. Fruit also reveals identity. An apple tree does not need to announce that it is an apple tree. The apples reveal its nature. In the same way, you do not need to convince others of who you are when your fruit shows it. Excellence, discipline, character, generosity, success. These are the fruits that speak louder than any claim. People may argue with your words, but they cannot deny your fruit. Fruit settles arguments because fruit is evidence. The most powerful testimony of growth is not explanation, but demonstration. Noise drains credibility, but fruit builds it. The more you talk without results, the more people tune you out. The more you quietly produce fruit, the more people pay attention. Authority does not come from how loud your voice is. It comes from how undeniable your results are. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one with the most influence. Influence comes from fruit, because fruit creates impact. Noise may capture attention for a moment, but fruit sustains respect for a lifetime. Fruit benefits others. A tree does not eat its own fruit. It produces fruit to feed others. In the same way, your growth is revealed not just in how it benefits you, but in how it blesses others. When your wisdom helps someone else grow, when your business creates opportunities for others, when your generosity changes lives, that is fruit. Noise is selfish, but fruit is generous. Noise is about proving yourself, but fruit is about serving others. Real growth is never just about you. It is about the fruit you produce that becomes nourishment for people around you. Fruit multiplies. One apple carries seeds for an entire orchard. One act of discipline produces results that compound for years. One act of generosity inspires countless others. Growth revealed by fruit creates multiplication, because fruit always carries the power to reproduce itself. Noise dies quickly, but fruit continues to spread its influence long after the words have faded. That is why focusing on fruit is so powerful. It does not just prove growth. It creates legacy. Fruit demands consistency. You cannot expect a harvest from a tree that was watered once and ignored. Growth requires steady, repeated actions over time, even when no one is watching. Noise requires little effort. You can create noise instantly. But fruit takes patience, persistence, and endurance. Consistency is the soil where fruit grows. The more consistent you are, the more undeniable your fruit becomes. Those who depend on noise for recognition will fade, but those who stay consistent will produce fruit that continues year after year.